All right, everyone. Hello, and thank you for joining today's webcast, Business Intelligence as a Service. I know we're getting close to the end of the calendar year, which means you're probably frantically trying to get things done, or you're just winding down before the holiday season. So I truly do appreciate you taking the time to log into today's call. Quick introduction to me, since you'll be listening to my voice and watching me on the screen for the next 25 minutes or so. My name is Amanda Quon. I am a principal business intelligence and analytics consultant at Thorogood. I've been with the company for a little over 6 years at this point, providing data and analytics expertise to customers kind of across a wide range of industries, consumer packaged goods, manufacturing, health insurance, property and casualty insurance, financial services, etc. You'll notice that my email and my LinkedIn information is available on the screen here. That is purposeful. Please do feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Quick introduction to Thorogood. Who are we? What do we do? We help our customers make sense of their data, kind of at the heart of things. We bring our industry expertise, our domain knowledge, in conjunction with a breadth and depth of technical understanding to really partner with our customers to design solutions that provide business value. And I'll say that our business focus is really at the forefront of what we do, whether it's data science, data engineering, or data visualization. We have offices all over. I'm personally broadcasting to you right now from just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and we provide our services to our customers all around the globe. We leverage a breadth of technologies to help our customers with their needs. We are an independent consultancy, and that independence allows for us to provide a kind of unique view of the right tooling for the right job. We also partner with a lot of the vendors that you see on the slide here, providing a knowledge and an understanding of kind of the latest and greatest that each have to offer. So today's webinar, we're here to talk about business intelligence as a service. Now, what does that mean to you? Why should you care? How is that relevant, really? Before I go into that, let's take a quick step back and talk about digital transformation. So what is digital transformation? I suspect many of you have probably heard the term before, whether it's from a VP in your company talking about it in a monthly newsletter, or a keynote at a conference you attended last year back when you could attend conferences in person. Digital transformation isn't necessarily about digital technology, but the fact that technology, digital technology, allows people to solve their traditional problems. And they prefer these digital solutions to the old solutions. One of my favorite examples of digital transformation that I mentioned to my friends or family as we're around the dinner table, back when you could be around a dinner table, is on Domino's. Many years ago, over a decade ago, I would say at this point, Domino's made the jump from ordering pizza over the phone to ordering pizza online. And it extended far beyond simply just having a few clicks and ordering your pizza online, but you could choose between any and every option of the different toppings you would want for different halves of your pizza. You would get automatic pop-ups for additional snacks or sides that you might want to add to your order. And then when you did submit it, you got to see the status of your pizza, when it was going into the oven, when it was on its way to be delivered, and you had an estimated time of arrival. Absolutely fantastic for your end user. I didn't have to speak to anyone over the phone. There was no miscommunication about all of the different things that I wanted to change around my cheesy bread or the pizza itself. And I got to know exactly when it was going to arrive. But how did it help Domino's? Domino's now has tons and tons of data about their users, their buying habits, the time of day they're most likely going to purchase a pizza or so. And they can make better business decisions by harnessing this swath of data that has now been made available to them through leveraging digital technology. Now, like I said, Domino's did this years ago, many years ago, but what about digital transformation now? How has COVID affected digital transformation? someone I'm working with right now actually sent me this comic, and I just had to include it in today's presentation because I thought it just perfectly encapsulates what we've been seeing over the last few months. And that's the pandemic has really accelerated businesses' needs to adopt digital transformation strategies, whether it's because your organization needs to survive in this crisis or to leverage it and get a leg up on some of your competition to thrive in some cases. So if I think about how digital transformation has accelerated businesses just over the last few months, my local wine shop across the street is now on Instacart, so I can have my grape beverages delivered to me in an instant with a few clicks in my web browser. Online conferencing tools like the WebExes and the Zooms of the world have just completely exploded with user adoption. Home improvement stores, grocery stores, local pharmacies, they've all had to deal with very different consumer spending habits, which has created quite a stress with respect to learning what to stock, when, how quickly. And if we think about just this month, holiday shopping has caused an enormous volume of packages to need to be delivered this year, requiring all of these shipping companies to learn to adapt to this kind of influx of logistics problems. So in whatever way a particular industry or an organization has been affected, there are two things that have been clear about this acceleration to digital transformation. It's that people now need data more than ever. They need help with that data, and they need help with it very quickly. So today I'm going to be covering a few common pain points or needs that we've seen across the board as of late, and how the structure of those needs has really changed from pre-COVID, so sometime last year, to now. And in the examples that I'm going to be walking through today, I'm specifically looking to highlight requests that have been significantly less defined than in your pre-COVID era. And that's those kinds of nebulous, larger scale requests have essentially resulted in a methodology that provides end-to-end business intelligence, say, as a service, to get the best results that can showcase value quickly. The objective for today, and the hope really, is that you have a sense of how your organization can tackle some of these broader, more nebulous requests, and maybe even come away feeling like you aren't alone in some of the things that you're trying to do in your company. So we'll be covering 5 examples. The 5 are: 1, data democratization, or getting data into the hands of all the right users. 2, data enrichment, provisioning meaningful data for speed to insights. 3, data analysis and analytics, identifying and quantifying underlying patterns. 4, storytelling, creatively presenting insights to a variety of audiences. And then finally, strategy and empowerment, so enabling your organization with the right skills or the right people. Once again, just 5 examples we'll be covering today. Many more, obviously, that we've seen from our customers over the last few months. But these, we thought, just really had the most common trends from customers across industries at this point. Let's start. Data democratization. What does that mean? It's about getting all the right data, as much data, sometimes all of the data, in the hands of the right users. And you'll notice I've specified this qualification, the right users, and that is also purposeful, as there's an aspect of data privacy that should not be lost when you're thinking about provisioning data globally or provisioning certain types of data like personally identifiable data. Long gone are the days that you would have to raise, say, an IT ticket in order to receive a month extract of sales data out of SAP BW, for example. So maybe this time last year, you were interested in putting together an initiative that pulls all of your SAP BW North America data, say, into an existing data lake that you have set up in your organization. Big task, lots of downstream dependencies. You know it's likely going to take some time. So you opted to set the scope pretty small, and you've set a fairly realistic time frame for completing it based on your instance. Now, in comes a pandemic, and now you need to accelerate this process. But is the acceleration really just about SAP BW data in North America? Is it for your global audience? Are there other regions that need to be prioritized? In what way? What is the right scope? You're not entirely sure. Your initiatives have all kind of been upended over the last few months. And you know your demand planners in your organization, for example, have started knocking on your door and they're saying, hey, we need access to all the data. You don't really know what all the data is, and you don't know how quickly they need it, but this is the request that's coming to you. Now, an end-to-end service would allow for some, say, initial investigation, appropriate planning, prioritization, with a build-out occurring quickly and incrementally, allowing for rapid iteration and adoption should needs change in today's ever-changing world, so is almost expected. So in the case of data democratization, with the example I provided, my demand planners need access to everything. What you'd want to do, likely, is start interviewing some of your end users, understand the breadth of use cases, what would they use the data for, and then map their actual use case to the underlying data source or multiple data sources in that case. You might end up with some kind of data ingestion plan that is slightly different than the initial SAP BW data in North America request, especially if you take an assessment of kind of importance versus urgency. And maybe you'll find that you want to start with something much smaller to enable the business very quickly, while in parallel, maybe doing something that is much larger in scale. In any case, you don't necessarily need to know right this second all the data sets and the architecture and the process for ingesting that information. But what you do want is some kind of roadmap or service to learn how to engage and unlock the data for your users. Data enrichments, it takes data democratization kind of to the next level, if you think about it, where you've done just a bit more than replicate source data, for example, in a data lake, but you've now enriched your data in a way that's understandable by the end users. So in a similar vein, you may have, in the middle of last year, started to specify some kind of plan to create an enriched data lake layer for marketing data. And this plan had 3 specific external data sources that you wanted mapped together so that they could be fully harmonized, and you wanted them mapped to an internal product hierarchy. Pretty fun initiative, if I say so myself, but I'm a nerd, so that's pretty much expected. But it's now 2020. Everyone's planned initiatives, like I mentioned earlier, upended, scrambled. And what you're hearing now is that your marketing team is saying, well, the data that we are seeing in the data lake is unusable. Can you fix it? All right. Well, I'd say in this case, I would take a pretty similar approach to data democratization, sitting with your users on video, obviously, understanding exactly what data they need and why they need it. Data enrichment, I will say, especially needs someone that's knowledgeable on the data sets itself in order for your end user, and your marketing user in this case, to feel as if they're talking to someone who gets it, an understanding of why market data set X is important and why market data set Y is slightly more complex than X, etc. And then you can run a very similar kind of importance versus urgency assessment, plan accordingly, and then start making these incremental changes. I will say then that the more knowledge that you have on the data, the quicker you can make the necessary transformations and enrich the data itself, the quicker you show value to your end users that want to leverage the data, and thus the more trust your marketing team in this case has in your data set, which will ultimately lead to real adoption and thus value creation. Because while it's great to have swaths of BW data in a data lake, if it's completely raw and every field name is just an 8-character alphanumeric code, is that really valuable to your end user? So being able to do the right aliasing and the right enrichment of that data will truly unlock value for your business. Very hot topic, data analysis and analytics. So your marketing team, let's say they now have all of this enriched data, their harmonized data sets, and they want to go a step further. They're interested in having some metrics that are provided to them on an ongoing basis, metrics that are provisioned to them every week, every month. And perhaps those metrics are metrics that tell the story of what happened, and they're fairly simple to put together. For example, volume of products sold over the last 6 months. But with COVID, they not only need that information quickly, in some cases they need that information instantly once the data is refreshed, but they also need to derive insights from that data as quickly as possible to figure out how it's going to affect consumer behavior in the weeks and months to come. Because there's not very much data prior to the pandemic that you could determine what consumer behavior would look like during a pandemic. So as you're in this pandemic, understanding the information as it's coming in and being able to quickly analyze and do some analytics on it to understand your consumer behavior moving forward has been incredibly valuable to businesses. But this is probably one of the most complex and most nebulous requests. Exactly how do you determine the questions to answer, the metrics to look at, the different levers to review? It's important to take a step back and to take stock of what you do have available. Are you only looking at your internal data? Do you incorporate external data? Is it external sales data, or does it also include things like economic factors, demographic factors, etc.? So take stock of all that you could review and make an assessment on things that make the most sense to really drill into, I would say. Start planning analyses, but I would caution it's incredibly important to consider the right balance of speed to insights to the complexity of the analysis itself. Because there might be an analysis you're interested in reviewing that would garner potentially a very high value output, but might take 3 months to complete. And in a pandemic scenario, you don't necessarily have 3 months to complete an analysis and try to make a change to the stock of a particular product in an area to increase sales. So that balance is pretty key. And I'd argue that the judgment of where to keep that balance and the types of analyses and frequency with which you do them has to include some stakeholder buy-in and agreement. But once you have that view of what those analyses are and when you'll look to complete them, go ahead and start testing. And then if you are able to find a particular model, for example, that provides some significant business value, you will want to plan, potentially, the build of the productionization of that model to scale out that value. Storytelling. I really like storytelling. I'll say it's a pretty broad brush term covering the presentation of insights. So once again, using the same idea of where were you a year ago or so thinking about putting together an initiative around storytelling. You may have put together something that said, I need Tableau dashboards showcasing sellout data for the EMEA region. But now, as of August or September of this year, you suddenly have presidents of each of your global regions, so APAC, Latin America, North America, including EMEA. Each one of those presidents is interested in having a global holistic dashboard with everything that they would need to know to quickly pivot the distribution of product to the right places. Oh, and by the way, that dashboard also has to have enough information for VPs, directors, managers, etc., to take action on the decisions I make. Easy task, I know. Classic pandemic, what has occurred here? The need has grown in scale, and your business users, in this case your presidents, are asking for it to be delivered yesterday. So what can you do? In a very similar vein, you can look to do this investigation, the definition, and then ultimately just an incremental build out. So I would look to determine exactly what your different audiences are, the different KPIs each audience is looking for, the KPI definition, and hope that these aren't defined differently across regions, but they sometimes are. And you want to know kind of the granularity that each of these audiences are looking for that information. Start storyboarding the way in which you'll create maybe different levels of dashboarding with maybe drill through analytics. Start with the most granular view, receive feedback early and often with that particular audience, and then summarize at each level before presenting to your next audience. So perhaps you are putting together a suite of reports that are at the most granular level for your managers. After you've gone through this kind of iterative dashboard development process with your managers, then ask them, if we were to create a summary of this for your director, what do you think your director would be most interested in viewing? And then from there, you can co-create that summarized dashboard that has a manager or multiple managers buy-in, and then present it to the director. And then you'll run through a very similar exercise, putting various dashboards in front of the director, getting the buy-in, and then saying, if you needed to provide a summary of this information to your VP, what do you think your VP would be interested in seeing? And kind of going up this ladder of not only iterative developments, but also incremental buy-in from all of the users that you would eventually expect to be leveraging the dashboard, and thus driving adoption once it does fully go live. You've probably noticed that some of the common themes across these examples are end user enablement and tool adoption to derive value. So to truly adopt to a digitally transformed world, you'll need an organization that is bought into and has the skills needed to appropriately leverage the tools and the data that you can provision. That's a pretty big and daunting task. A lot of organizations started small by enabling maybe self-service tools like Power BI, getting masses of users trained in it. And that is a very good starting point. But now perhaps you have a need to have more advanced skills with new or existing tools to unlock insights more quickly, more than ever before, really. And what does that mean? Does that mean you need to hire 20 data scientists? Do you need to upskill your current team in statistical methods in R? Exactly what is the definition of structuring this team? And so this one's interesting because speed to value in this case may be incremental trainings for users supplemented by external expertise, while your longer term play may be additional headcount and or more thorough training curriculum for certain groups of users. And you might have a larger scale kind of multi-tiered user empowerment journey that employees jump into starting on day one. But whatever the solution is, it does need to be bespoke and tailored to your organization's philosophy and ultimately appetite for these kinds of enablement programs. So today I covered just 5 very high-level themes of some of the needs and requests that we've seen from organizations as of late, and how these needs have changed in scale and in complexity since the pandemic started. And mind you, complexity is expected as more and more information is unlocked within your organization at faster and faster rates, requiring just this quick, fast insight for decision making. So what is business intelligence in a world of digital transformation? Well, it's much more than just using and leveraging technology to surface insights, but truly serving your end users to drive value with your technology and tools, or business intelligence as a service, if you will. And that is all I have for you today. Once again, thank you all for joining. Please do reach out to me on LinkedIn or via email if you have any questions or if you just want to chat. But thank you. Have a safe and happy holiday season.